Radio 161, great to make the hook up there, Matt.
Hi, this is your band.
Yeah, Matt, J. Juliet Alpha Yankee was my name for your further information.
Hi, this is CBRadiomagazine.com, and we're going to take a look at the new Magnum Raptor. This is an AM/FM export radio. This one is just hitting the market. Starts to show up in some of the local dealers pretty soon, and definitely has a couple of new features we haven't seen on exports before. So let's jump into it. Along the bottom half of the radio here, the controls are going to be fairly standard. We've got a volume control, squelch. The volume is also your on-off. Microphone gain and RF gain. There's a band to go through your different bands of frequencies. There's an echo and amount and delay here. So dual control echo. You're pretty sure you're familiar with the echo in the Magnum radios if you're watching any of my other videos. So very good echo in these radios. There's a SWR calibration and talkback control here. This is variable control talkback, so infinitely variable, high or low. And you've got SWR here. This radio does have an SWR calibration on it and the ability to check your SWR. So we'll go across those features. Here's your SWR, SRF, and calibration switch. SRF is going to show on the meter here. You can switch it to SWR mode, show here, or you can set it to calibration to calibrate for SWR. AM/FM switch here. I'm going to zoom in on this area and kind of show you what these are. The Magnum Raptor does have an RFX75 on the back of it, which means it does have a higher power transistor amplifier section on the back. Radio is going to do about 80 watts, give or take a couple watts. Now this section up front here is going to control the amount of output on the radio, and it does so in a neat independent way that we haven't seen on a lot of other radios. You can vary your carrier or your dead key and your peak output, or the amount that you swing up to for reference. So there's two settings here. There's a low setting and a high setting. And for example, in this low setting, the carrier in low is going to put out about 2 to 3 watt dead key. The peak is going to mean that the peak of the output is going to stay a little bit lower. It's not going to run up to that full 80 watts. It's going to peak more like a dual final, standard dual final radio. Now, this would be nice if you're near other drivers and you don't want to blast them out with the full output of the radio. Or, for those of you who like to run amplifiers, here's a way if you want to run an amplifier. You run this at 2 to 3 watt input. You're only swinging about the same as a dual final radio. So there's a lot of amplifiers out there, of course, that can't handle the input from an 80 watt RFX system. So that's what's neat about this radio. It allows you to run it a lower input, so into an amplifier, and then when you want to hit the open road and you want to transmit but you don't want to use your amplifier, you can flip your carrier up to high. It's going to be about 10 watts, 10 to 14 watt dead key there, and you can flip your peak up to high. Now the radio is going to peak at the full output of the radio, the 80 watts. So very neat. You can set it to two different settings, high and low power. And I mean, there are a lot of other radios that allow you to set the power high or low, but they don't also allow you to vary the peak. Now the one other thing you can do with this radio is you can set the carrier low and have the peak high. So you can dead key 2 to 3 watts and then peak up in the 80s. So that's a very neat feature as well. They do mention in the instruction manual one thing you don't want to do with this radio is, because it is allowing you to do this, you don't want to run your carrier high and your peak low, because then you're going to be compressing, your audio will sound compressed and a little bit muffled, because as we all know, you want a carrier to peak ratio that's going to work well for the radio and your audio, which is going to be about a 1:4 ratio. So high, 10 watts to 14 watt, 80 watt, full amount of the radio. Low, you can do a carrier 2 to 3 watts, full output of the radio, or you can do carrier 2 to 3 watts and lower output, more like a dual final in the 35-40 watt range. Very interesting on that. Now, last thing I'll show you is the Roger beep switch here. This is a Roger beep on-off button, and the Roger beep is going to sound a lot different than you've heard on other radios. So a lot of the other radios, just a standard beep. What I'm going to do is turn this on, and then we'll do a little test here and let you listen to it. So most of you are familiar with Roger beeps on a lot of the export radios and a lot of CB radios out there, and most of them are just going to be a standard single tone beep, and they do vary from the length and the style a little bit from the different radios. This radio definitely does have a unique Roger beep, and we'll let you listen to it as we unkey, and you can hear the difference. So I don't know if you heard that. We'll give it one more try so you can hear it again. So definitely a different sounding Roger beep on this radio, and that's another interesting feature of the Raptor. Let's flip the radio around just to show you the RFX75 in the back of the radio. At the back of the radio, you'll see the power wires coming out. They do have a quick disconnect on here, so you can just disconnect the wires without having to unplug it from the radio directly. On the radio itself, you'll see the RFX75 unit mounted back here, and I'll show that from a top view as well so you get an idea for the size of the radio. There's an antenna jack here, external frequency counter, so if you are going to be using some of those other bands off the band switch, you can definitely plug in an external frequency counter and jump to those. External speaker jack here, and of course your power cords mounted here. This is mounted permanently to the radio, and then you use the quick disconnect if you need to disconnect the radio from the power. Okay, the quick top shot of the radio here, and we'll go back to the RFX section. You can see it does stick off the radio just a little bit, and it's got that heat sink on there. Most of that back part is the heat sink to dissipate the heat from the higher output transistor. Let's pop the covers and have a look inside. Here's the inside of the Magnum Raptor radio. You see up front here a universal talkback board and a TRB-X2 turbo echo. And that is one nice thing about Magnum radios, is because these are both their proprietary products. When you purchase a Magnum, you do get the all-mode talkback and the echo, which are both really good products individually. So nice thing, you get them in that full package, and that's why the talkback and the echo on the Magnums works very well. It's very popular. Surface mount technology in this radio is only found on the echo board. The rest of the radio is a standard layout. You'll see at the back of the radio up here is the RFX75 system, and they got the hole in the back here with the wires running out. Overall, very clean design inside. Not a whole lot going on. It is just an AM/FM radio, so there's not as much going on as there is in sideband radios, but still a very clean layout. Shouldn't be a whole lot of problems with anything shaking loose, and I think that should add to the durability of the radio for those drivers out there that are expecting to hit a lot of bumps in the road. Everyone always asks about echo on the radio and what it sounds like, and to do a test, so I've done it on other Magnums before, so it's going to sound similar, but just because everyone always asks, I will make sure I do it today. Otherwise someone would email me if I forgot. So we're going to just turn up the talkback slightly, which we've done. We're going to go through the echo control. Just start at the bottom and just go through it real quick. So this is with the echo off, and we'll go to 9 o'clock position. Echo in the 9 o'clock position, 1, 2, 3. And we'll run it up to the 11 o'clock position, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And just a short delay. We'll go up to the 12 o'clock position, audio. And go all the way out to the 3 o'clock position, and it starts to space out the delay, and if we go up to maximum, you'll find it does the repeating. So very neat control, and you can definitely mess around a bit. So for those of you who like echo, that offers you the ability there to do variable echo. Lots of different options. Roger beep, of course, can be turned on or off. And this new radio definitely is interesting. One of the things with the RFX75s on some of the other radios is that it was difficult to vary the peak output. You could adjust the carrier down, like if you were going to pair it up with an amplifier, but some of the amplifiers couldn't handle the peak of the RFX75. So that's why this radio is neat for this, allowing you to drop both the carrier and the peak. So if you do have an amplifier that can't handle 80 watts peak, you can drop your carrier down to 2 to 3 watts and then have your peak be more like a standard dual final export radio. And then if you don't want to run an amplifier, you can pop this back up to the full output. Or conversely, like if you just want to run locally with some other drivers and you don't want to blow them away with 80 watts, you can drop your peak down for that. Or it does give you the ability, of course, to lower your carrier down real low and then run the full maximum of the radio for low carrier, high peak. So Magnum Raptor, this radio target price, I think it's going to come in around the same price as a General Lee, and I think that's kind of what they're aiming at for this market, which is going to be interesting because this radio does have a little bit more going on than the standard General Lee, so that'll be kind of interesting in terms of price, and we'll have to see where it comes in once it hits the dealers, but should be out there shortly. And once again, this is the new Magnum Raptor.